Hello, everyone. Welcome tonight. It is Sunday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And this is our March 23rd, 2025 devotional. I welcome you. I thank you for joining me. And I hope something happens tonight that's worth your time. As I've been doing the last few weeks, I would ask you to do this again. Share your favorite story. Tell me which of these stories, as you listen to them, has the most meaning to you, and perhaps a line about why, because that enables me to know which stories to post on the Facebook page and which ones to share as weekly stories. So let me know which ones you like the most. Oh, and where am I? Well, looking out over my shoulder there, if I can get the light to work right, you're looking out over the Salt Lake Valley. I'm up here in Draper, not too far from the temple at the home of a friend. And it has a gorgeous view off of his back deck. And so he allowed me to borrow it for a few minutes. So it's beautiful. I mean, you probably can't see it, but right out there is the Jordan River Temple. And there's another temple over there, another one over there, and one right over here. This is a cool place. I mean, there's temples all over the place up here. And that's part of what I'll be talking about tonight, is about the temple in a roundabout way. So one more thing by way of business. What does it mean to be a VIP? Well, it means, oh, for heaven's sakes, I just noticed, not 30 feet off the back deck right here below me, there's a deer lying in the flower bed, chewing her cud. Oh, my word. Big old fat doe right down there below me. That's cool. Mule deer. She's not paying the least bit of attention to me. That's cool. What does it mean to be a VIP? Well, it means that you are a financial contributor to these stories, to the books, and to the people that send this information all around the world. The purpose of what I do and those who assist me is to teach the gospel. It's to inspire and to edify. Oh, and here comes the fawn looking up at me. Beautiful. Oh, my word. I love this. And when you're a VIP, you make a financial contribution every year to support this work. And what you wind up getting for that is you get a free book, you get discounts on other books, you get the weekly stories for free, and you get inside information as to what's going on, new stories, where I'm traveling, things like that, and tickets, discounts on tickets when we do events. So that's what it means to be a VIP. I'm going to give more to the VIPs as time goes on. Now, there's a difference between a VIP and a free subscriber. The free subscribers are those who sign up to receive an email every Sunday morning, which contains a video of a single story and a written copy of that story. That's what it means to be a free subscriber. Again, free means free. There is no charge. There is no obligation. That's not the deer. That's the backup klaxon on the Amazon truck. Anyway, and you would receive a free story, a free video every week, comes directly to your email. It's kind of like your weekly inspirational thought is what it is. And free does mean free. There is no obligation for it. And anyone can be a free subscriber. There are over 20,000 free subscribers to these stories. Thank you if you are one. And if you know someone that would enjoy receiving one of these stories every week for free to their email, let me know. Send them to me, glennrawsonstories.com. One more piece of information. I am leaving on a river cruise down the Danube on the 29th of September, 2025. I talked with Fun for Less a couple of days ago. There are 4 spots left on that Danube river cruise. This is, by my estimation, way more fun than an ocean cruise, and so much closer to the actual sights. And the riverboats are so much nicer. If you would like to come with me down the Danube on the 29th of September, there are 4 spots left on that tour before it's filled up. Contact funforlesstours.com. Tell them that Glenn sent you and invited you on the Danube. All right? And one last thing, I just got my schedule for 2026 with Fun for Less. And some of the places I'm going to go, just quickly, I'll be doing 2 tours of church history in 2026, 2 tours in the British Isles, 2 tours of Israel, 1 Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. I'll be in Israel twice this year. You think, are you crazy? Yeah, I was there on October 7th when the war started and the bombing started. But yes, I'm going back and I am thrilled to do so. That will be in 2026. And then in addition, well, I'll be going to Japan and Southeast Asia in 2026. So you'll be hearing more about these tours as time goes on. Let's get started, guys. Would you have a prayer in your heart for me, for each other? That something is said tonight that will be a benefit to someone. I hope you. First of all, a story from Come Follow Me. It was early September 1830 when the prophet Joseph Smith and Emma moved from Harmony, Pennsylvania to Fayette, New York to live with the Peter Whitmer family. Joseph was troubled in that move when he discovered that Hiram Page, a son-in-law of the Whitmers, had got in his possession a certain stone by which he had obtained to certain revelations, all of which were entirely at variance with the order of God's house as laid down in the New Testament. End of quote. Joseph labored with the brethren and, at Oliver Cowdery's urging, inquired of the Lord and received a revelation now known as Doctrine and Covenants, section 28. On September 26, 1830, the conference of the church convened at the Whitmer home in Fayette. The matter of Hiram Page was brought up and put to rest, and the conference voted to sustain the revelation, section 28, that declared that Joseph and one only was appointed to receive revelations and commandments for the entire church. That was a momentous moment in church governance and a very important precedent. Newell Knight, a friend of the prophet Joseph, was there, attended that conference, and gave the following remarkable witness of the events that transpired. Newell said, quote, "On my arrival," meaning in Fayette, "I found Brother Joseph in great distress of mind on account of Hiram Page, who had managed to get up some dissension of feeling among the brethren by giving revelation concerning the government of the church and other matters which he claimed to have received through the medium of a stone he possessed." And then Newell, now see what he's saying? Hiram Page had caused dissension, argument, disagreement, divided the church. Newell continued, "Page had quite a roll of papers full of these revelations, and many in the church were led astray by them. Even Oliver Cowdery and the Whitmer family had given heed to them, although they were in contradiction to the New Testament and the revelations of these last days." So you see, this wasn't just a single revelation. Page had received a bunch of them, random revelations through a stone, which had caused the church to argue. The result, Joseph was perplexed and scarcely knew how to meet this new exigency. That night, Newell said, "I occupied the same room that he did, and the greater part of the night was spent in prayer and supplication. After much labor with these brethren," Newell continued, They were convinced of their error and confessed the same, renouncing the revelations as not being of God, but acknowledging that Satan had conspired to overthrow their belief in the true plan of salvation. In consequence of these things, Joseph inquired of the Lord before conference commenced and received a revelation in which the Lord explicitly stated his mind and will concerning the receiving of revelation. That's section 28. So you see in part here, there is revelation from a true source, and there is indeed revelation from a false source, very close and very counterfeit, taking you off just a degree from where you should be. But there is indeed revelation that comes from the devil. Newell continued, during this time, we had much of the power of God manifested among us, and it was wonderful to witness the wisdom Joseph displayed on this occasion. For God truly gave unto him great wisdom and power. And it seems to me that none who saw him administer righteousness under such trying circumstances could doubt that the Lord was with him. He acted not with the wisdom of man, but with the wisdom of God. The Holy Ghost came upon us, Newell said, and filled our hearts with unspeakable joy. Before this memorable conference closed, 3 other revelations, besides the one already mentioned, were received from God by our prophet and were made to rejoice exceedingly in his goodness. End of quote. Now that is information that might be relevant and helpful for you when you study section 28 of the Doctrine and Covenants in connection with Come Follow Me. Remember, there is revelation from a true source. There is revelation from a false source. But when it comes to revelation, you and I are entitled to receive revelation for ourselves and over that which we have stewardship. But only one is appointed to receive revelation, declaratory, and commandments binding for the entire church. And that is the prophet of Almighty God. Conference is coming up. I hope you appreciate that. Next story. My dear friends, love is a gift from God. And men are that they might know joy, yes, and that they might know and understand love. We cannot truly love others, though, until we really, and I say truly love others, until we first love God and then feel his love in us, not for us, in us. So with that, would you permit this old man to share his first memories and witnesses of love in this life? I hope they help. I was just a little boy growing up in Idaho's Lemhi Valley. My dad was a ranch hand, a ranch manager, whatever you want to call him, and my mother was a homemaker, a housewife. My dad would work every day going down into the fields in the summertime to change water and coming back with a bouquet of spring wildflowers and giving them to my mom. I remember him walking in with the flowers. She would light up like sunshine every time he did that. And he knew it. He knew exactly what he was doing. Those flowers are long gone now. But the memories of my dad's love for my mom are still there. Dad did not know it. I don't suppose he even cared. But I was watching. We were poor when I was growing up. I remember that my dad made less than $300 a month working on the ranch. But that didn't seem to matter at Christmas time. Every year, the single most expensive, thoughtful, and elaborate gift under the Christmas tree was always the one he got for Mom. And her reaction was always predictably the same. She was thrilled. Somehow it was always the most perfect gift and what she most wanted. She would brag on her gift, and Dad would just beam like a lighthouse. Somehow, whether they really did know what to get or she really did always want just exactly what he got, I don't know. But they knew how to give and receive from each other. They knew more than anyone else I've ever known. They knew how to do Christmas. I remember a time when I was a knot-headed teenager. My dad made me so angry. I stormed into the house and vented my frustration as a young cowboy could to my mother. To my surprise, my soft-spoken little mother, her indignation was instant and fierce, and she was in my face. I will never forget how quickly my mother put me in my place. Never again did I speak against my dad to her. I learned from that she would defend him. Even when he was wrong, she would defend him. No one, and he wasn't wrong very often, by the way, no one could come between them. They were one and determined to stay that way. And any differences they had, it was never acted out or discussed in front of me. I didn't understand the significance of that then, but I do now. And continuing, meat and taters. Meat and taters. To this day, I can't eat pan-fried potatoes. I swear it was the only thing my mom ever fixed. I came to loathe it. I can still see it in my mind. I can still taste it. Did my mom not know how to cook, you ask? Oh no, my mother was an excellent cook. It's just that meat and taters was what my dad liked. It was his favorite meal. She could cook many things, but her favorite thing was to fix what my dad liked. And I still laugh. You can still see it. I still laugh when I think of those times when my dad would come into the house. He would sneak up behind my mom, usually while she was cooking, and he would either just give her a swat or he would pick her up and give her a squeeze and then drop her. Mom would get all indignant and pretend to be angry. She'd grab a skillet or anything that was handy and take off after him. Dad would holler like he was being killed and run across the house for his life. She'd always catch him. He'd make sure of it, and they'd laugh and they'd tussle. She'd usually punch him on the arm, but the outcome was always the same. It always ended laughingly in a tender embrace and a kiss. That was so fun to watch. They were the best of friends. That's what I saw. That's what I witnessed. My dad is gone now, and my mother is north of 90 years old. She misses him, and she tells me often how she can't imagine going on without him. They had the best marriage this man has ever seen. I have come to know of a surety that those of you who are loved and in love, be grateful to God for the heavenly, godly gift of love. And to those of you, I'm sorry, whose arms are empty and whose hearts yearn and ache, please know that God knows and that you are not alone and your time is coming in faith. God is love in the purest, highest, and most pleasing sense. And the closer you come to him, the more you will love and be loved. Those who live with him and in him never live alone and are not unloved. Not now, not ever. Is there anything in time and in eternity more precious than love? The Holy Scriptures assure us, no. Next story. You have heard the phrase, choose ye this day whom ye will serve. Well, agency has been a subject I've studied for a long time. There's way more to it than just the right to choose. My dad, when I was a boy, had the philosophy that every little boy should have a dog. So when I was just a wee little lad, not even up to the horse's leg, my dad got me a dog, a mutt, and I mean a mutt, a little collie mixed dog that we named Stockings. I still remember the long hours that Stockings and I played together, him chasing me around the yard, nipping at my heels, trying to trip me up. We had so much fun together, got lost together, explored together. We were the best of friends. And as time went on, Stockings worked the cows with me. He was a dog that understood sick 'em, and off he'd go. That little mutt had no fear. And since I was a boy that grew up in the mountains and loved to wander, you can imagine the places a little man and his dog went and explored. We went through much together. I grew up and he grew old. I was there on the day when a pack of dogs from a neighboring ranch attacked him, mangled him up, tearing up his leg. I pulled him out of the fray, drove the dogs off, and then cried and cried as Stockings' life hovered for days between life and death. He recovered eventually, but he was a three-legged cripple for the rest of his life. That didn't stop him. He was there for me when I was so sick with chronic stomach problems and in constant pain. We were the best of friends. We did everything together. I loved that little mutt. As I look back on it now, Stockings had one vice. No fear, yes, but he loved to chase cars. We tried everything to get him to stop, but he wouldn't. Chasing cars was his passion, and he was good at it when he was young. He even did it all his life, even on three legs. Until one day, Sheriff Hawley came to our house, and in the back of his Ford Bronco was the broken body of my little dog. He'd been hit by a car. He was still alive, but barely. We made him a soft bed on the sunny side of the house. I sat by him as he lingered and sank. And finally, my dad suggested that my mother take us to visit relatives. I didn't understand at the time. I do now. She loaded us up and we left town. When we got back 2 days later, I went straight for Stockings' bed. It was empty. He had died just a couple hours after we left. Dad buried my best boyhood friend with fitting respect. I cried and I cried. How I wished that Stockings had chosen different. His foolish choosing broke my heart and destroyed his life. So deeply did this affect me that never again would I so set my life on a pet as I did him. It is with people as it is with a little dog. Agency is not and never will be free. No man has a right to live wrong. Our choices always bring consequences to us and to others. Someone here or in eternity is affected by our every choice. We are, with each decision, either drawing closer to God and those we love, or further from Him and them. To be an agent is to act and bind ourselves inexorably to the consequences and the outcomes. Therefore, dear friends, wisdom is to get smart, be intelligent, and then act. Choose, act that way. Oh, be wise, my friend, in what you choose this day. Choose prayerfully, because I witness to you, even God stands aside for your agency. Let's take a break. On May 1st, I'm going back out to Martin's Cove on a 3-day tour. I checked with the powers that be, and there's over 30 people already on that tour. I think we can only hold about 10 more. If you want to go May 1st for 3 days out to Martin's Cove and learn the story of the Martin and Willie disaster and the handcart rescue, come with us. It's fun, and it will be a very moving experience. If you're interested, go to glenrawsonstories.com or historyofthesaints.org, either one. General Conference. On Saturday morning of General Conference, Dennis and I and Adam Lyman have produced a new documentary called The Miracle of the Book of Mormon. Saturday morning, 9:30, KSL Television if you live here in the viewing area, or KSL.com. Saturday morning, 9:30, The Miracle of the Book of Mormon. And one last thing as far as housework. I don't know if you're interested or not, but Nathan Harrington and I are taking a group of people down to the Mesa Easter pageant. We're leaving April 15th. If you'd like to come on that tour, go to TetonStagelines.com. I'll put all of this in a note on Facebook later on so that you can read through and know the websites that you should go to. All right, one more, continuing on, not one more story, but here's the next story. And again, this is kind of in connection with Come Follow Me, and sort of in connection with section 25 of the Doctrine and Covenants. I love Sister Emma. And indeed, she is a bit of a mystery. But I've looked enough at her life. I have great love and respect. When we speak of faith and courage, this story should ever be remembered. January 18th, 1827, Emma Hale, 22 years old, traveled north up the Susquehanna River from her home in Harmony, Pennsylvania, to visit her sister who was living near Colesville, New York. While there, Emma and Joseph Smith Jr. discussed marriage once again. They had known each other since the fall of 1825, when Joseph had lived with her family while working in the area. At that time, the two became attracted to each other, and perhaps with good reason. Joseph was taller than most of the men of his day. He was around 6 feet tall, powerfully built, strong chest and arms, light brown hair, clean-cut features. He was frequently described as a handsome young man. Emma, well, she too was tall. According to the accounts of the day, 5'9", well-figured, long dark hair, dark eyes, and olive complexion. George A. Smith, Joseph's cousin, would later describe Emma as, quote, the most beautiful woman in the universe. a sentiment which was echoed by others. So no wonder they were attracted to each other. They courted according to the social customs of the day, things like dances and corn huskings and letters and poems and sitting in the parlor. In time, Joseph and Emma agreed that they wanted to be married. Also in accordance with social custom, though not required because of Emma's age, Joseph asked Emma's father, Isaac Hale, if they could be wed. Isaac's answer was no. He did not approve, and he forbade it, and he didn't like Joseph's occupation. Well, consider how difficult that had to have been for Emma. According to some accounts, she and her father were particularly close. The record seems to indicate that Emma was a favorite with her father, and he was especially fond of her. If she chose to marry Joseph, she would be sacrificing the relationship with her father and with her family. There would be no cherished wedding in the family parlor with friends and sisters and bridesmaids and all the family gathered around in celebration. Not only that, Emma would be giving up her home, all of her friends, the substantial dowry that she had accumulated, and the comfortable, relatively affluent lifestyle that her father had provided. She'd be giving up home, family, friends, community, all of that for Joseph. In other words, it was all she'd ever known and loved and was comfortable with, or it was Joseph. And what did Joseph bring to the table? Well, where Emma was well educated and cultured for the time, Joseph was a rough-hewn frontiersman, mostly illiterate. And while he was studying hard to change that, still, Emma said he couldn't craft a well-worded letter. Maybe that's because he had written letters to her, love letters, during their courting. Not only that, Joseph was a hated and a hunted man. Twice already. He'd been arrested and put on trial as a fraud and a charlatan. And while that represented perhaps the worst of the persecution heretofore, there were those who were threatening his life and despised him for what he believed and claimed. Joseph had seen God, seen Christ, conversed with both, and been mentored by angels. The heavens had been opened to him, and not many months hence, the Book of Mormon would be brought forth through him. Joseph Smith Jr. was not a popular man. If Emma chose Joseph, she would take his part. Whatever came upon him by the will of God and the wickedness of men would be hers to share as well. On January 18th, 1827, at the home of Squire Tarble, Zachariah Tarble, in South Bainbridge, New York, Emma and Joseph were married. Whoever else may have been in attendance that night, Emma's family was not there. The way I look at it, and you don't have to agree, Emma's decision to marry Joseph represents the first real and great sacrifice in faith for the restored gospel in this last dispensation. To marry Joseph was to give up everything and proclaim by that covenant that he was telling the truth and that she believed him. On that day, she took his part and she carried it all the rest of the days of her life. If there ever lived a person who knew Joseph, who suffered immeasurably because of him and his message, who could have exposed him if he were a fraud. That person would have been Emma, but she never did. She who knew him best, loved him most, and bore the strongest witness all her days by her words and actions that he was a prophet of Almighty God. Thank the Lord for Sister Emma. Next story, and I hope you don't mind. I remember a time years ago when my youngest daughter, Annie, seemed to have suddenly come of age with regard to money, or at least part of the way. Here's the story. We went out to eat at a local restaurant, Homestead. I gave Annie a quarter, and out of a vending machine, she purchased a little gold ring. She loved it, and then she lost it. So she asked me to take her back and help her get another one. I did. Standing in front of the little machine, she asked me for a quarter. I gave it to her, and she inserted it. Out came the ring, but it wasn't the same one. Well, that's not good enough. She repeated the process trying to get the ring she wanted, and she spent all my quarters and still the wrong ring. Finally, I said something like, "Honey, if you want more quarters, you're going to have to work for them." Well, I guess that's when she made the connection that work gets money and money gets things like rings. A day or so later, I came home and found her busily at work, sweeping the floor. Then she put away her laundry, cleaned her room, vacuumed the carpets. It was kind of comical. The vacuum was almost as tall as she was. And then Annie presented me with the invoice, if you will. At the top of the page was her checklist of work: room, laundry, floors, vacuum. Each was checked off as completed, and then at the bottom of the page was this note: "Hey, Dad, this is what I did for $50. I tried to explain to Annie that a person gets paid according to the amount earned, then that $50 for a half hour's housework, that was a little much. I don't know if she understood, but when I gave her 8 more eagles, she called them, to buy rings, she was quite happy. Now, I thought about that story, and I drew this conclusion. I wonder how many times I have done the same thing to my Heavenly Father. Gone to Him in prayer, asked or demanded $50 worth of blessings for $1 worth of effort. There is a law irrevocably decreed in heaven that when we obtain any blessing from God, it is by obedience to that law upon which the blessing, is predicated. Or in other words, if I want God's blessings, I have to do what He asks, the full measure of what He asks. It is that simple. Annie wants a ring now. She will want eternity later. They're both obtained the same way: obedience and hard work. And it is the same for you and I. Put forth the effort. Eternal life doesn't come easy. Last story for tonight. I will be doing a series of some stories over the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4, leading up to Easter. Easter means that Jesus rose from His grave. No man had ever done that. Hell had no claim on Him when He rose. No man ever lived like that. He rose free and unencumbered by death, hell, and the devil, determined, as He did so, to bring all of us who would come to the same resurrection as his. Our resurrection, my dear friends, is our gateway to eternity. But you know, not all resurrections are the same. Yeah, we all get a perfected body, but we don't all get the same power. If we want a resurrection like Jesus had, a celestial, exalted resurrection, then there's something we have to understand. This story. Jesus had traveled far to the north, beyond Galilee, near the headwaters of the Jordan River. He had hinted at, but now he began openly to explain to his disciples that he must suffer many things of the chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised again the third day, Matthew 16. Well, this announcement, stark and bold, startled and upset the disciples. Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, "Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be done unto thee." Now, Peter meant that in love, but he was completely out of line. Jesus responded by saying, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Jesus said with intense emotion, "Thou art an offense unto me." Wow. He referred to the chief apostle as Satan. Can you imagine the disciples' shock at that powerful rebuke? Why was Jesus offended? Peter meant well. Well, you know the answer. Because Peter was attempting to turn Jesus from the foreordained course to work out the salvation of himself and all mankind. Peter was working for Lucifer at that moment, although he didn't know it. Well, Jesus didn't leave them sitting there, slack-jawed and wondering. He gathered them close and explained what it meant to be his disciple. "Whosoever will come after me," he said, "let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." He commanded them to deny themselves of all ungodliness and lust and keep the commandments at all costs. They were to forsake the world. And as he said, "Be not ashamed of me." He said if they gave their lives to him and for him, that they would come with him and be clothed with his glory in the cloud on the right hand of the Son of Man. Mark 8:38. And then, as if to assure them that what he promised was possible, he added that there were those present who would live to see that day. Well, those disciples that day near Caesarea Phillipi, they could not see the distant good for the present bad. Jesus was going to die. Jesus, however, was fixed on a glorious resurrection. What did it matter that he had to suffer, sacrifice, and die to obtain it? His eye was single. Well, so it needs to be with us. So what if life is unfair? It is. In case you haven't checked, it is. And it will stay that way. So what if life is unfair? So what if it's painful? So what if God, family, and country demand more of us than we think we can give? So what if it hurts? If it brings us at last to rise with him and look at him as he looks at us and know him as he knows us. In conclusion, the pathway to that powerful resurrection he had, well, it may not be as easy as some of us think. I know that Christ's restored gospel is true. He has brought back the power of godliness to all mankind. We can be like him, just men and women made perfect. We can rise with him and be like him and know him as he is. That is my witness. Have a great Sabbath, a wonderful week, and I'll see you again.